Hi, everyone. My name is Amanda Gibson. I'm here with Megan Lacy. She is the co-founder and CEO of Lumineye, headquartered here in Boise, Idaho. Very excited to talk to her about her journey over the last year, but also the last 4 years. This particular talk is something that Boise Entrepreneur Week is doing in partnership with Boise State's College of Business and Economics, Women in Entrepreneurship Week. So we're really excited to have Megan here with us. Thank you so much for being here, Megan, and hello.
Hi.
Thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to talk with you about everything that's happened in the last few years since you've started the company. You are the co-founder of Lumineye, headquartered here in Boise, Idaho. It's a company that started in 2017, and you've had significant success, I would say, in the last 4 years. 2 years ago, actually, 2019 was when you won one of the pitch competitions that Boise Startup Week, as it was called at the time, offered. Can you tell us more about what the product is and what's taken place since 2019?
Yeah. So the product that Lumineye builds is primarily a small handheld or deployed through wall sensor. And it basically helps with first responders trying to enter structures where there could be potential danger. So like a fire response, search and rescue, hostage rescue situation. And then we also work with the military and federal government through DHS and military.
So people can see more about the work that you've done in your talk last year. You had a 30-minute long fireside chat of sorts, and as part of the events that were done virtually last year. But one of the things that you and I have talked about as we've discussed the company and the growth and the product is the fact that you have a design background and that you've incorporated quite a bit of that into your approach with not just the product, but even how you go to market. Can you tell me more about what design means to you?
Yeah, so I think something that going through Hacking for Defense and going through the Venture College, and then myself going through user-centered design-focused undergrad, we were really focused on listening to the users from an early part of our company, and even honestly before we made the company. And that's really what we're talking about with design is user-centered design. So when I'm referencing that, I'm talking about actually listening to what the user wants in the product and building that. So anything from their training that they get on the product to the user experience, to the user interface of our app, to the hardware design and the capabilities that we build out. We build it for the users, not for, I guess, science or for what we think would be best, because we're not the ones that are in these life-threatening or really dangerous situations.
Yeah, so one of the things that you mentioned when you and I had first talked was the comparison between the products that were existing in the marketplace. Can you say a little bit more about what you saw?
Yeah, I think that, when we first started through wall sensing, people hadn't been really focused on that for a few years. There was a big push in the early 2000s, but it was the products out there weren't necessarily meeting the user needs in that more tactical, quick deploy, life or death situation. And so we kind of made that our primary focus and then said, what capabilities can we provide in that form factor, knowing that that was the ultimate requirement to getting users to use the devices. They had to be able to carry it with them. And they had to be able to interpret what it was saying. And so we weren't always seeing that in the products that we saw out there, or just users weren't even really familiar with the technology or couldn't afford it. So we've really focused on cost and portability and then capability.
Yeah, and you also, it sounds like you focused as well on how the users actually experienced it, everything down to even the visual components of what it looked like versus the products that were in the market at the time.
Yeah. I think another thing we really focused on is we want the users, we don't want to change their workflow. I mean, obviously, sometimes you have to, depending on the limitations of tech, but we try our best not to change anything they're currently doing, instead work with them and have technology augment their experience instead of changing what they've been doing tactically for the last, 20 years if they've had a long career.
That's great. That's awesome. What has been the biggest changes for the company? Obviously, when you're a startup and things are scaling up over the first 1, 2, 3, 4 years now, there are a lot of great many changes. What have been the biggest ones, both in the marketplace and for your company internally, just in this past year?
Yeah, well, I think this last year has been really interesting because of COVID. I mean, our last year was probably a little bit different than we expected, just because, we had a lot of limitations. We relied on a lot of in-person travel beforehand, and it's hard to show people how a through-wall sensor works because we're showing you something you can't normally see. So start to show someone a through-wall sensor via like Zoom call, that is like a next level difficulty. And so I think that was something we really had to adapt, and our users had to adapt too, because they're normally in crisis situations. They're not necessarily attached to their screen and stuff. So how do we communicate with them? How do we demonstrate the value of the company? And I think that, and the product. And I think we really focused on improving it as much as we could over the last year. And then when we were able to start going more in person and people got into a rhythm of working hybridly and remotely, we were able to basically capitalize that time that we used to focus on engineering to then push our product out and get feedback from users as soon as we were able to.
Yeah, so it sounds like there's been many different shifts, as there has been for many businesses in the last year, of having to adapt continuously.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I'm going to shift gears a little bit because, again, we'll link to the other video, and then people can check out your product and see more information about what it does on your website. But one of the reasons why I think you specifically are so interesting is because the business is not your only priority. And I think oftentimes when people think of entrepreneurs, they think, you're just 24/7, one thing all the time, getting this business going, and that can be focus. But that is not the case for you. You're actually a very avid runner. So speak more about what avid runner means and what that looks like in reality.
Yeah, so I guess I've been running for 20 years. So that's the vast majority of my life. I ran since I was little, up elementary school through high school and in college for 6 years. I actually moved out to Boise to run at Boise State. So that's how I ended up in Boise. And I consider myself now to be an elite level runner. And my ultimate goal is, I aspire to be competitive for Olympic and World Championship teams for the U.S. I used to, my goal used to be an Olympian, but I know so many incredible, I don't like to put it all on that one goal because I know so many incredible runners that haven't done that one thing. And I think that a lot of athletes' careers are defined by something that happens every 4 years, and it's hard to be prepared at the right time to do that. But yeah, that's kind of my other goal outside of Lumineye, and I'm currently training for Chicago Marathon. So I think by the time this comes out, that would have already happened. So hopefully I'll meet my goals there. And then I have two new, I'm actually on the Team USA for the 2021 World Mountain Championship team. So that was a really awesome thing to be selected for. And so I'll be competing for Team USA with 3 other women, actually in the beginning of 2022. Because of COVID, it's been delayed.
That's really impressive. And training for that, I imagine, is not just, a quick 30-minute run every day or something to that effect. How long does it actually take you to prepare for something like this?
I run about 70 to 80 miles a week. So I think that ends up being about 10 hours a week. So it is pretty time consuming. And that's just kind of like the running time, not really like, how do you keep yourself healthy and everything. So I really try and get my sleep and do physical therapy exercises so that I can, spend the least amount of time doing other rehabilitation types of exercises.
Yeah, so more of that maintenance, and then just the whole system around it versus just getting out and actually doing.
Yeah.
Say more about how you stay healthy, because both the business and running and competing for something at this level requires a significant amount of stamina and dedication and planning, I imagine. So tell me a little bit more about how you think about what you include in your life to make all of that happen.
Yeah. Yeah, I think something that's important for me is I don't see running as like an option for me. It is like I view it as another job, but it's something that I love doing, and I love doing both my jobs. So I'd like to have fun with both of them, but I don't view it as, oh, maybe I'll go for a run today. Like you said, I have to plan it out. And I've actually tried only focusing on the business. I did that in the beginning of Lumineye, and I actually found myself not really mentally fully there. I felt like something was kind of missing, and I actually felt like I wasn't doing as good of a job at Lumineye. And I think like I need to take that time for myself. And that is how I view running. It's like an outlet for me right now. It gives me time to socialize and see friends because I have friends that run, and it gets, I get time outside even if I'm inside for most of the day. And that's really important to me, especially in the winter, because like when you go and you go to work, you basically are there during all the sunlit hours of the day. So I like to get outside, and I feel rejuvenated from that. So I think it actually makes me more, obviously makes me more physically healthy, but it really helps my mental stability, I guess, when running a business is kind of stressful and uncertain sometimes.
Sometimes, yes, many, many times I can imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's great. Are there lessons that you see from running that transfer to the business, or from the business to running, vice versa?
Yeah. Yeah, I think something one of my college coaches used to say all the time was enjoy the process. And it kind of annoyed me at the time because I was like, I want to be fast now. So this would be like my lesson from running. And I think, over time I understood what they meant. Like you have to truly love it to excel at it at the level you want to. And you can't just be doing it, for, recognition or fast times. And I think that's similar to the business because, I think a lot of entrepreneurs, they want to be the next so and so very successful, like insert successful business person here. And if you don't enjoy what you're doing, like the vast majority of startups and small businesses don't work. And that's just the reality of it. Statistically speaking, if everybody, became Jeff Bezos, there would be no Jeff Bezos. So, it's just, it doesn't happen. So you have to kind of enjoy what you're doing. And then I think from the business side of things, more to work smart, not hard. There's just so much to do. And hours worked is not an equivalent to like output, I guess. And I think in running, I used to think more miles is better. I'm actually pretty low mileage for my level of athlete that I am. And I have to work smart, not hard, because if I tried to run as many miles as some of my competitors that are literally professional runners, that's their job, I would get injured. So I can't do that. And I just have to kind of recognize what can I do with what I have to be as good as I can get.
Yeah, I love that. Really thinking about pacing yourself and working smarter, not harder, because there's injuries that you can sustain in business as well that are not maybe
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
at first, at least. So
Yeah.
that's great. And then, as you and I have talked as well in the past, you've kind of referenced the running and the business and kind of all the pieces of it, but also been very purposeful about the way that you have set up the culture that you want to build in your own business. So tell me a little bit more about what you see your role being in as that culture morphs and continues to grow.
Yeah. I mean, I think like I know I said this to you before. It's just like as a leader in the company, you are the culture, regardless of if you want to set it or not. You're going to be creating that culture. And I think kind of touching on what I said before, like I think it's glamorized in startup culture and entrepreneurship culture to be like always working, always grinding, and it's I work a lot of hours and I work hard, but I think it is more about working smartly and efficiently. And I don't want to glamorize like a 16-hour day. Like I'm angry when I work 16 hours, like, because I know that that's not sustainable and I'm not going to be able to do that day after day. And I'm going to get burnt out. And so I don't want that for employees too. I mean, it's hard to hire people and retain talent. And once you spend all that time onboarding someone, you want them to actually enjoy the thing that they spend most of their time doing. And you don't want them to leave. And I think, if you burn them out, they're going to go looking for something else. Yeah. So I try and model that with, I'm always trying to get better at it, but I do think like with my running, at least I can show that like, hey, like I'm doing something outside of work that's really important to me, and that's okay. And that's actually encouraged here.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's not just running. Also, I want to highlight that for haven't had the pleasure of the people that haven't had the pleasure of talking with you as I have about as you've tried to balance vacations or just taking downtime, things like that, really understanding. I feel like you have this really solid understanding of the sphere of influence around you and what kind of makes up what you need in a day.
Yeah, no, and I'm grateful for all the, my friends and my coach that like they get those things like that I need to take that downtime, and that, also like I might have to spend some time by myself or something. And I think it's really all about like good communication and making sure that you're prioritizing what you need. And, I think if you're doing that in a way where you communicate well with the people in your circle, no one's going to be mad at you for missing something or, having to do a little bit of work while you're camping or something. I'm kind of notorious for that, bringing my laptop into the outdoors when I don't necessarily have time to do the full outdoor experience, but I can get, most of it and then also get what I need to get done.
Yeah, that makes sense. I really appreciate that you highlight your role being that you have to actually live it, because I think so many people are seeing that right now. If anybody's paid any attention to what's going on in work with the news and the great resignation and all of that, people are burnt out and people are reconsidering things. So I love that you're being purposeful right from the beginning with actually living what you want to see your employees do as well. So
yeah, I'm trying. Always a work in progress, but definitely trying.
Yeah. And you have more employees now than you did last year. So tell me more about how your leadership has changed as you've gone from, a small group of co-founders to now having a larger company.
Yeah. I mean, we've changed a lot in the last like 6 weeks. We have like 4 new people. So, and we're only 9. So we've had quite the shift over the last few months. And I think a lot of things change at that point. I mean, I think you have to learn to become more decisive about things. So I think that's kind of something that's always a learned skill, and it's hard to be decisive because, decisiveness is kind of scary, and you don't always know the right way. And then I think the other thing too is we've had to kind of have more meetings and things like that, like more intentional communication, I guess. And that's come both from the COVID remote hybrid workspace, but also having more people to make sure everybody's on the same page. And then I think something I'm trying to do myself is to be more proactive instead of reactive, just in, policies and just kind of anticipating employee needs. And I don't think I'm there yet on any of that, but that's something I really want to work on because, it definitely changes when, there's people's livelihoods and their career development and everything on the line. And, it's a lot of pressure. So, yeah.
So you can see it coming and you're preparing for it. And being very careful too, to consider the whole team and their growth and the sounds like.
Yeah, for sure.
That's great. What about on the personal side for you over this last year? What's been the biggest lesson that you've learned?
Mm-hmm. I think my big one over the last year has been really focusing on not limiting myself. And I think that I think everybody does that. They kind of like box themselves into like what they think they're good at or they should do or something. So I've been trying to one, not limit myself, and two, like really focus on like what is most important for me, and my growth when I'm, thinking of my personal development and not what other people think I should be doing. And then the not limiting myself thing has really come into play with my running. I think I kind of boxed myself into this. Well, I'm really good for a entrepreneur, or I'm really, I'm fast considering how much I work. And so I stopped saying like I'm fast considering how much I work, and I said, how fast can I get? And I actually had a lot of improved times, and made my first USA team, I think, because I just put myself out there and I wasn't afraid to kind of go for it. So I think that's something I'm working on.
That's fantastic. So it sounds like you are now more in a competition with yourself as opposed to looking around at compared to given everything else in your life, or compared to what other people are doing. So
yeah, and I'm trying not to worry about what other people. I mean, you should worry about what like take other people's feelings into consideration, but not really worrying about what they think from like what they think you should do, or how fast they're running is really the thing in running that gets me. So yeah.
Fantastic. If there's one piece of advice that you could give to an entrepreneur who's just starting out on this journey, what would that piece of advice be?
Yeah, well, I think I kind of touched on this earlier, but chances are you're not going to be an overnight success. And even if you appear to be an overnight success, you probably aren't an overnight success. You probably were working years until that moment when you appeared to be an overnight success. And so I just think that you should make sure you're working on a product you believe in, and don't expect that if you kill yourself for a short term, like working all the time, you're going to have success. Like basically you need to be able to sustain the pace that you're going for a really long time, and have healthy relationships in your life, and practices and everything like that. And if you don't, you're going to burn out, and you're probably not going to enjoy what you're working on anymore, which would be really sad, because that's the whole, reason you started working on this in the first place.
Yeah. I mean, even with the language there, you just pulled in sustain the pace. And I think that's definitely a lesson that transfers over from running as well.
I know a lot of people say like it's a marathon, not a sprint. And I have a hard time. I think I said that too. I have a hard time saying that phrase, because I'm a marathoner. So like it's too perfect. So I normally don't say that, but it is pretty true.
That's great. Is there anything else that you want to share with the startup community in general, or with other people that might be beginning on their journey?
I think that's the main thing. I think just the other thing too is just don't be afraid to reach out to people in the startup community. I think the Boise small business and entrepreneur community continues to grow, and a lot of the things you're experiencing aren't necessarily something that like someone's probably experienced them before. So I would say don't be afraid to reach out to people, and then also make sure you don't neglect your support system, because they like if you're if you have the opportunity to start a company or something, you probably have a support system that's helping you. And so make time for those people, and maintaining those relationships, because if things get hard or something, those are going to be the people you lean on.
That's great. I found that to be very true. And so I think that's very helpful, especially when the tendency is to double down and work harder to be a investor. So I think that's very valuable. And I'm sure that there's many lessons that have been packed into these last several minutes. And I hope that it's been useful for everyone watching. Again, we'll link to Megan's last talk from last year and the website, and you can find her on all the places online and learn more about the journey and also the amazing product that they have that is being very great help to first responders. So thank you so much, Megan. It's been awesome talking with you.
Yeah, thanks for having me.